Hello, and welcome back to Tagged. Thanks to Victoria, every bit different. I'm Sarah Hosking, and we have an absolute huge show in store for you today. We will be talking later on with, quite literally, one of the biggest people we know, Mason Cox, giant ruck from Collingwood. We'll also discuss a little bit of finals. Unfortunately, Rowie is not here today, my co-host, but even better, I am joined by one of our very own, Liv Vesely, who comes from St Kilda Football Club. Welcome, Liv.
Thanks, Sam, and thank you, Rowie, for going over and trying to find some love in Ireland. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity.
She is. She's off, I think, doing a little bit of Gaelic talking as well, brushing up on her Gaelic, but we hope she comes back in a week's time and she might have the love of her life. But for now, Liv, we're going to jump into a little bit of footy talk. Tell me a little bit about Saints. What's been happening in your off-season? We're in the silly season, as we like to call it, as you can probably tell.
We certainly are. I think on reflection of the season, it wasn't probably the season we'd wanted to have. We started off strongly and then ended without making finals, and just wasn't our season. But I think we've got a really united and resilient group. So going forward, we'll reflect but won't spend too long on what could have been. We'll go forward into the season, like this season coming up, 2025, with, I guess, hopefully injuries that set us back will be fixed and healed, and then we'll go forward with a positive attitude and give it our best shot again.
You've got to take a positive out of it, like you said. The first, how many games did Saints win in those first couple of weeks of the season? Haven't done that for a little while. There was a lot of hype around Saints who sat at the top of the ladder for a little while at the start of the season. So you got to take some positives out of it too.
Oh, certainly. I think we definitely had instances of our best football, and players like Janome Anderson. Yep. Charlotte Simpson got to debut, Paige Trudge, and those sort of players got to step up into roles that they wouldn't have previously been able to experience if we did have a full healthy list. So having those girls really find their own was awesome to see as well. Yeah, obviously not winning after that round 4, or we won one in the end, but.
Well, speaking of, I guess, best players as well, I kind of want to ask the question, it's been the silly season for a week or two now, who was the best off-ground?
Best off-field, I would say myself.
Good. That's what we love to hear.
No, maybe not myself. I think everyone gave it a good crack. I think we're all just excited to be with each other and have some fun.
Well, I find it quite interesting. I want to let everyone in because there's been a lot of talk about off-field, postseason antics across AFL and umpires. Now, context, we've spoken about it on Tagged. GWS, we know, got fined for, some of their dress-ups and their acts. Now, leading into ours at Richmond, we had to send in any costumes that we were going to dress up at. So it had to be pre-approved. So again, I cannot believe in this day and age that we're still having to talk about this stuff. I find it quite funny. We didn't have a topic, or we didn't have anything that we had to dress up as, which almost makes it harder. But I did go with a couple of the girls as Men in Black.
Wow,
so that was
nice.
my costume. So I had the suit, I had a little skirt on, had a little tie, we had the glasses. I thought it was really good. We had a little alien teddy and, very sophisticated, as I like to call it. We were at the Sporting Globe. The one thing that I would recommend for Sporting Globe, they have a private function room, then they have a main pub area, and then they have the bathroom. So for anyone that needed to go to the toilet, you're dressed up in costumes, walking out past the private, walking out past public people. So
lucky you got your costume approved.
Yes, true. Now, what was your theme?
Our theme was Op Shop Wedding. So right. I actually got married 2 weeks ago.
What? Seriously? No.
Yeah, no, wait, so I didn't. Oh. I was actually the bride.
Geez, Rowie would have been impressed.
I know. Yeah. I've come with newfound love.
So Op Shop Wedding, can you paint the picture for us? How does it work?
So it was actually a Steph Chiocci idea. Everyone is given a role from the wedding. So we have obviously the bride and the groom, and then the best man, the best women, and then the audience members, which are all family members and funny sort of roles, I guess you could say. And then everyone has a task on the day and no one knows what anyone else is.
That's good.
And actually going back to the best on, it was probably Hannah Stewart, she was the wedding planner, kitted out with a slicked back bun and a headset. So that was quite funny.
I love that.
But yeah,
Who was your groom? Or bride? Bride and bride, should I say?
No, my groom was Beck Ott.
Oh.
Who, it was funny because she borrowed her husband's wedding suit for our wedding.
Great. Well, we'll get off the silly season stuff. Something I want to talk about as a diehard young Saints supporter, I was as a child growing up. I've heard a little bit of news around the rumour mill. By the time this episode drops, I believe that St Kilda will be dropping a new logo.
Yes.
Now, as the inner child in me, I'm trying to envisage what it's going to look like. You will give us absolute donuts and haven't showed us the picture. But I'm hoping that the old school Halo Man is back on the new Saints logo.
I hope.
Can you confirm?
I can't confirm anything. I haven't seen it myself. I have no idea. I may have seen the back of a board that was painted, but nothing in person. I really do hope that the stick man is back. That would be really fun.
I call bullshit. You know exactly what's coming up.
I have no idea. Yeah, they would not trust me with that kind of information, but it's exciting for the club. It, I guess, kind of shows a new chapter for both the women's and the men's program. And so hopefully with the new logo.
Halo Stickman is going to be back on it.
Yeah, and hopefully with the new logo, there is a new chapter coming with some success as well.
Well, exciting times for the Saints fans ahead. But we're going to jump straight into finals week. So we're week 2 of finals. Obviously, we saw some of the games that happened across the weekend. One of the arguably a very surprise for everyone, but you heard it here first on Tagged. I did say that Port was going to win and beat Hawthorn, so I'm starting to add to my title that I might be an analysis.
I have heard
analyst. No, analyst. But Port v Hawkscliffe, what did you think?
Oh, what an incredible game. So awesome, the matchup. I think in the last quarter, such a good spectacle. For Port to win and have that momentum going into North this week. The momentum in the past probably helped them against Hawks. Yeah. But Loz Arnell, what an incredible person and coach, and the way she's been able to just rally that group is pretty inspiring and incredible. And obviously you know her pretty well.
Yeah. I played with Loz at Carlton, and again in that, you know, I think back to what Loz has done as a player and a coach. I'm so excited to see what she does with this young group, and I think if anything, she'll be inspiring, and she'll, you know, allow those young players to feel like they have the belief to make this grand final, to win this final. And I just remember back to, you know, round 1, Loz was our captain at the time. Round 1, 2017, Carlton versus Collingwood. There's an iconic picture of Loz talking to the group in the race. You know, the look on everyone's face. The one thing I remember her saying to the group was, make sure that when you run out there, you take this moment in. So it was one of those, I literally have goosebumps talking about it, but it was one of those things that I'm like, you see photos of us and we had smiles on our face running out. We took the moment in, and that was one of the best things that could have prepared me for the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, that aside, I think as a coach, I think she's inspiring. These young girls obviously have the belief that they can do it, and I'm excited to see what they can do this week because, again, it's whoever's in contention when you come into finals. It's the best team that performs on the day.
Yes, and I think Dowrick and Horton in those instances, they had probably different games to what they're used to, but they own the moments. And I think if Port own this week against North Melbourne, own the moments, they don't have to play. Well, I do think they will have to put up a strong performance against North Melbourne, but just as you said, like Loz saying, we'll stick to our game plan, all of that, it's going to be an awesome game to watch.
But part of the question is around the heat as well. So this game is expected to be played in potentially 35-degree heat, 3:05 at Icon Park. Now, there is things, you know a lot about the heat policy and what happens in the heat policy.
Yeah.
But, you know, is there something for the question for the AFL is, do you move the game a little bit later, or will it impact the style of game being played if you're playing in 35-degree heat?
Yeah, definitely. I think both teams will be physically able to do it. They've had an awesome season and a huge pre-season too. But I think in terms of the crowd as well and sitting through that heat and trying to have an awesome atmosphere too, that'll be interesting. The AFL can enact the heat policy 24 hours up to 24 hours before the game, which I think only means that they'll have more water runners.
Yes.
And I'm not sure
extended break of maybe an extra minute or something, possibly.
Wow, yeah.
Well, that's what it used to be. It could don't fact check us on this because we don't know. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
My question would be, do you ever look at heat policy rules of increasing rotations? Because that is the other thing as a player, that if you could get more rotations, it allows you to have more of a break, and then you've got quicker bursts of energy.
Well, we saw that with Port and Hawks, a lot of girls cramping in the last quarter, and I think with that extra heat, definitely that will that will happen and occur more often. It'll be interesting to see how North Melbourne, having the week off, match up against Port, going into having had 2 hot games in a row. But
who wins?
I think I'd love Port, but I think North Melbourne will definitely win, and I also think they're deserving of a grand final win. So they're a strong team. I'm
going to jump on the next game because it's Lions v Crows. Now, I'm going to just rip straight into this because I think that this is the grand final before the grand final. So what we did last time on Tags, well, for context, Lions and Crows have huge history. They've been grand finals against each other, both inaugural teams. You know, this is a power punch game. Like
massive.
The last 3 games.
Last 3 games, Lions have won by less than 5 points. So I think
huge.
I can't wait to watch it. It will be incredible.
So what I thought we'd do, because I think it's the grand final before the grand final, Rowie and I, you've obviously seen our last episode, the men's grand final this year, we pulled a name out of the hat, or a team out of the hat, and I rigged it. So the loser...
I'm not surprised.
The loser had to do a blind tasting. So what I've done today is I've got, where's that scarf gone? So for those that can't see, I'm currently holding up a Brisbane Lions cap. It's got
a scarf.
Both teams in it, okay? So do you trust me?
No, I don't at all.
Well, the good thing is you're not doing the blind tasting next week because we think Rowie's going to be back. So I thought we'd redo this, draw. Whoever gets the losing team next week, Hosco or Rowie, we're going to have to do another blind tasting, okay?
Great. So, that sounds delicious.
So you can see they're in here. You can hear the paper rattling around. Are you ready to pull out? This is for Rowie. So whichever team loses this week. So
I'm sorry, Rowie. Whatever.
So who do you have? Hold it up to the camera.
I've got Brisbane.
Okay, so you've got Brisbane. Now, do you trust me enough to prove that I have that I have Adelaide? Crom. There we go.
Crom.
So Crom.
We love
so
that.
I've got Crom, which means you got to put the hat on for the rest of the show. I have
the rest of the show.
Not the rest, just for this little segment. So I've got Crom next week, and Rowie has Lions. Whoever loses does the blind tasting. All right, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce the biggest guest we have ever had on our tag show. Quite literally, we are joined by Mason Cox. Welcome, Mace. How are you going?
It's an honor to be here. I'm going very well, thank you.
Thank you. How's your day been? You've walked straight off the training track, straight into tags. We're very lucky to have you.
Yeah, no, just training with the young boys. So came back a bit earlier. They started about 2 weeks before the 5+, which... I think I'm sitting on my 10th or 11th season now.
You're getting old.
Getting up there. These 18-year-olds just running circles around me. But no, it's good. So training with them before we start back on Monday.
Yeah, and tell us, you've got a couple of new teammates. Have they hit the training track yet?
Yep. So everyone that we traded for is actually in training, which is it's always a good sign whenever you have the guys that join the program want to come back early and start playing with the the younger group and getting their head wrapped around kind of our game plan and everything else, which has been nice.
Were you one of the boys that sent a magpie to swoop Timmy Membry at his run last week?
No.
Did you hear about
that's a hell of a way to do initiation, isn't it? Get used to it. You'll have Bobby Hill probably jumping over the back of him pretty soon. So, but no, it's good. Tim's been awesome. He's been great. He's an incredible human being, and Harry and Dan Houston and everyone else has been really good.
And anyone that you don't want to be your locker buddy out of those 3 or anyone else in the team?
This is the beauty of it. Like, I picked 46. I didn't pick 46. I was given 46, and I haven't changed that number because I'm at the very end of I'm at the very end of the locker room, so I've got all the space in the world.
Smart.
I take up 2 or 3 lockers, like legitimately, and it's my own area, so no one bothers me over there. So. Now everyone seems to be pretty good. I think they're slotting in pretty well into the locker room.
Oh, good. Well, talk to us a little bit about your off season as well. You've just practically come straight off the plane, but you've been back home in America. So tell me about some of the things you got to do.
Very fortunate in this industry to be able to have 2 months off. So I went and did a month over in Europe, did Croatia, and then off to Italy and Como, and then Munich and Dolomites, hiked through the Dolomites, which is cool. Did Oktoberfest. Probably won't get into the details of that one.
No. This is, whatever happens here, it stays here. Trust me.
I had a good time. I think my brother had a better time. But no, it was good. And I went back to Austin, Texas, and then did ACL, which is a big music festival, and then very fortunate enough to be an ambassador for the US AFL. So the AFL's kind of competition over there. They had a national tournament in Austin, Texas. So Andrew Dillon, the big CEO, was over there checking it out, and the Tassie Premier and staff was over there too. So, and then Nick Rewalt was there also. So we got some great representation for the league, and both my brothers playing it. So it was nice to kind of support them.
Well, we were having a good conversation earlier around what American sports do so well, and what what AFL could take away from American sports. Now, it only seemed fitting if we asked the only American that plays AFL. What do you reckon? Whether it's AFLW or AFL could do differently to help grow the game.
With the AFLW stuff, I kind of look towards the WNBA and how much they've been able to grow in the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the big things, especially as of recent, is big kind of names like Caitlin Clark that's come through. And I was talking to friends that, go to different WNBA games, and it's almost like, LeBron James goes to, let's say, Detroit, and they're not going so well, but like all of a sudden that game, because LeBron's in town, will sell out the arena.
Yep.
And that's kind of what Caitlin Clark is doing. Like everywhere she kind of goes, they sell out an arena. So it's been awesome to, I guess, see kind of the amount of attention that women's sports has gotten through superstars like that, breaking records and things like that. Who knows? AFLW might, find the next kind of superstar coming through.
Sarah Hosking, I think it was.
Of course.
How's that going? Not very well. We're lucky if I can get on the park.
You just spoke about being over there with Rewalt, Andrew Dillon. I did hear you do have another story about two similar names that may have got construed a bit.
Yes.
Can you dive into that?
See, I'm a bit of an idiot because I'm still at times trying to figure out this whole AFL world, and names are not always the best thing. Now, this happened back in Melbourne. I was out at South Melbourne Market, and just in a little trinket shop thing, this little child comes up, and I love whenever kids come up to you because they're so excited, and that's kind of like why you do it, because you get to be a bit of a role model. And this kid comes up and goes, "Oh my gosh, like, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. My dad, Mr. Brown." I was like, he's a great guy, every time you see him, he's really nice, blah, blah, blah. And, they're buying a few different things, and it's like Fiska, which is like a Swedish game you play in the park. And I was like, "Oh, y'all enjoy yourself, and so then that night, I sent a message off to Jonathan Brown. I was like, "Man, it's so good to meet the family. Like, it's so great to see him, such and such. Like, your kid's an absolute legend, blah, blah, blah." He just comes back with like a real generic answer, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, no worries, mate." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then it's been a week later, I go to the horse races, and I'm sitting there, and I walk up, and this lady comes up to me, and it's the same lady that was there, and she's like, "Oh, that's so good. Mason was talking to the kids, blah, blah, blah." And then she brings in her husband, and her husband comes up, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, so good to see you." And I was like, "Nathan Brown?" I was like, and then it hit me in the moment. I was like, not John O'Brown's kids, Nathan Brown's kids. And now I'm sitting there thinking, next time I see John O'Brown, he's going to be like, "This guy's a big weirdo." Just sending messages with no context. No, I haven't. I'm just going to let it slide until I see him in person,
Well, good luck with that. But speaking of competition as well, I want to talk a little bit about footy. Some of the, I'd say the nastier stuff, but fun stuff. You're on the field, the stuff that the, supporters, the crowd can't necessarily hear. Are you a sledger? Give us
the trash talk. Yeah, I cop it, and I probably deserve it because I give it out a little bit. I think I do things so differently at times that you just you do get a bit of feedback from the opposition. Well, I think you're running around as the tallest guy out there, and obviously wearing glasses and a few other things, probably a few accessories allows for people to make comment. But at the same time, I tend to give it out. So I think it's kind of a two-way street. You got to be able to take it and give it at the same time. I enjoy it though. I think it's like part of the game. Like I look at my experience, and everything that I do is essentially taught from other people because I didn't know what the sport was. So if anything, it's like, it's on someone else who taught me if it's incorrect, right? It's not really my problem.
Who was the one that taught you how to sledge at Collingwood? Surely.
Yeah, who is the best sledger at Collingwood?
There's not really too many that give much. I don't know. I wouldn't say too many people really did it too often. I think I was probably one of the first people that just kind of embraced it a little bit, didn't really care. Guinea obviously did it back in the day at the club. I kind of always encouraged him to do it because I always loved to be the first guy to back him up, if he played in the forward line. Like I was kind of Braden Maynard, first in, smack someone right away. So he was probably one that kind of comes to mind as someone who's done it. But it's kind of great for me for people to be able to show personality, and if you're part of that process of people feeling confident enough to be able to be themselves on the field, it's a positive impact you're having.
Yeah, and what about, I guess you'd cop it from, the supporters too. So, and I think that's the best part about AFL, and maybe, I don't know if it's a difference in American football, but Aussie supporters for AFL are ruthless.
Yeah.
If that is not your team, I grew up a Saints supporter, but my dad always taught me, you hate Collingwood, no matter what. Like, you didn't have to do anything wrong, but it was the supporters that any team would just target one player.
Yeah.
Now, don't worry. Now, I'm not gonna pretend like I haven't watched a few Collingwood games. You have been a target of a few of them.
Yeah, people hate me. People hate me. I'm okay with it though.
Yeah.
It's better to be, have some emotional context to it. But I think like playing for Collingwood and like I look at kind of my career, and it's pretty insane to think you play almost one of the most, I guess, dissected positions in like a full forward on one of the most dissected clubs in the league. So a guy that doesn't even know what an AFL ball was when we first got here. So it's kind of a crazy experience. But you cough a bit. Understandable, because like our fans give it to everyone else.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to, take it at the same time. But I enjoy it. I don't know. It's just part of the game. Like at some point, you sit there and you go, it's always fun to sit in front of a crowd of 60 or 70,000, most likely most of them are fans. But one of those big games against like Carlton, stuff like that, just to turn to the crowd and shush them up is always a good feeling, that's for sure.
You're also one of the first people in the street that will give anyone the time of day. Like, and I hope you know that, because you genuinely, I look and I watch, and you're one of the first people that give time to kids, families, at events, that kind of thing. You have to be one of the nicest guys off the field that people will ever meet.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's very kind words of you. But I'm a different human once I go over the line. Like I think you do things that bring out, you bring out the best of whatever it is, brings out the best player that you want to be. Like in me, it's a bit of trash talk and a bit of like that gets me into a game. So you have to be somewhat of a different personality, and then you come off the track, and there's so many people that you meet over the years, and like, man, I thought you were an absolute asshole. Then they meet you, and you're like, oh, you're actually quite nice. So you do kind of have that funny interaction with people that have one visual of you and think that's you, and then you actually get the proper personality of who you are, and they change their mind pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You've been here obviously 10 years in Australia. What is one of the weirdest things that you still can't get over? I mean, a question you probably ask the whole time.
It's a long list.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I think one thing that I'll never understand is like, I don't want to talk bad about it because Australians hate it, but
Go for it.
like bunning snags, like just
Shut
a snag
up,
and just
are you
everyone's
serious?
reaction,
No.
not great, right?
They're the best things.
They're great. Bunning snags great, right? But the thing is like snags in general, like the white bread side of it, like not having a hot dog bun has always been such a weird thing to me. Like the rest of the world does like hot dog buns. I don't know if you realize this, but it's like
too much bread,
it's
and like
almost
too crunchy and just
I feel
stale.
like white bread is what you use for toast, like, and then you sit there and I was like, it's essentially you have nothing else left in the pantry, and you're like, okay, we'll just throw like a slice of bread with the sausage.
Well, they are trying to make a profit. They are trying to make a profit at Bunnings, so probably the reason why they do use white bread.
I'm all for it though. I just want to throw that out there. Bunnings don't hate me. I'm all for the Bunnings snag, but snags in general, I'm just still kind of questioning.
There's no Bunnings partnership for Mason Cox coming up.
Not yet.
Me, I am a fan. I will make that loud and clear. The last question before we wrap as well. I've got to talk about it again, off-field stuff. The size. Like, you are as tall as it comes. I'm as small as it comes. There are big differences. Now, tell me a little bit about, as a tall person, your height. What's some of the daily challenges or some of the things, the differences that we might face in life?
I hit my head on every doorway.
Yeah.
I'm 6'11". Doorways are 6'8", so you always have to duck
so
into
you know
every
the
single
size
door.
of the door.
Do you
I've
have
looked this up.
custom-made door frames?
I have a custom-made bed,
right.
custom-made clothes. Yeah, most stuff, custom-made shoes and stuff like that. Yeah, so everything has to be custom, which gets a bit
Really?
pricey,
Yeah,
as you can imagine. But there's little things. I mean, like fitting on a plane, like trying, like I always think like the
see
small
these ones.
areas, like trying to go to the toilet in a plane is pretty wild. Like, I don't know, it's a bit odd.
True, that
Probably
is.
won't go into the detail too
teased.
much. But yeah, that's a bit of a weird one. It's just like, it's everyday comments, I think, of like, for other people, right, they may not see someone my height for once a year or something like that, right? So they kind of have a freak out moment and they just spit out stuff from their mouth without thinking. You're kind of like, yeah, I know I'm tall. Like, I know. Or, like,
Yeah.
how's the weather up there and stuff like that. It's like, I would get that
You'd
10
hear that
times
every-
a day. Like, so to me, by the 9th or 10th one, you're kind of like, you don't even say
Come on.
anything. You just
Yeah.
look at them like, all right, man. You just kind of like, you roll on to the next thing in life. But yeah, there's plenty of things that are just a bit odd. But yeah, it's cool. It's allowed me to have an incredible life. Tallest player to ever play AFL, which is a cool
Yeah.
thing to say. And just, I think of all those things that are kind of negative. Like, there's so many positive things that have come from it too, that you have to kind of remind yourself of how fortunate you are in life to
Yeah.
be able to experience what you have.
You'd be able to see every concert.
Oh,
The
but now I feel bad for the
prime
people behind me, so I try to
perspective.
sit out, I stand out the side or like something like that, you know, and
Too
then you get everyone
kind.
asking to
Too
be on your
kind.
shoulders,
I
and
was-
I'm like, now you're just making it worse for the people behind you. You just push it on to someone else. But it's always funny being at concerts, because you'll watch it and then you turn around, there's like this massive hole of people, and you're like, yeah, okay, sorry everyone, apologies. You won't see me front row at any concert, I'll tell you that.
That's always on the football field. I feel like as a shorter player, you always get the armpits from everyone else. You're up there, your head's in the
Yes.
armpits. One thing you don't have to deal with, so you're welcome.
Yes.
Anyway,
It's a good tactic.
I'm rambling on now, but that is all we've got time for today. So I do want to say a massive thank you for being on. You are welcome back anytime.
thank you.
And I
Definitely.
look forward to also hearing about your, media career outside of footy too, and hope that we get an invite on your podcast.
Yes,
very
the
soon.
podcast,
More than
famous
welcome, whenever you
podcast. It's doing a great job.
Little plug.
Yeah.
The Mason Cox Show.
Yeah, there
it's
you
pretty
go.
simple. It's a real innovative name, I know. But no, I appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Best of luck for the season.
Good luck,
you.
Mace.
All right, Liv, we are powering through this episode, but right now it's time for our tagged list. Thanks to Victoria, every bit different. And this week we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at Gippsland. More importantly, I want to talk a little bit about Wilson's Prom area. Because
Beautiful
have you been?
area. Yeah, I've been on a couple of times, but went on a hike last year with my dad actually, which was very sweet. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Huge hiking tracks.
It's-
Beautiful place to camp. You've been yourself, haven't you?
Well, I have. It hasn't been somewhere I've been a lot of times, but I did go with a group of friends. It's about 2.5 hours outside of Melbourne, but I went with some friends and went camping, and then we were close to the beach, so we ended up staying on the beach and sleeping on the beach, and then woke up to the sunrise. We had a little fire
Beautiful.
pit around the area. It was really cool. So it's one of those things that I still couldn't tell you which location it was, but it's something I'll remember forever.
Yeah, so picturesque. The
And-
water is crystal clear, so
But it's all it is so busy. I think that's the best part about it, is it gets so much traffic. You love the nature walks. Everyone knows about it.
I think this time of the year is perfect time to go if you are down in Gippsland area, because it does get very hectic over Christmas, but it's unreal.
There's a few other things you can do. So if it is crazy busy and you love a little bit more of the quiet things, there's some boat tours, even on the way. I think
On the way, I definitely spent a lot of time at Inverloch growing up, and it's such a beautiful little fishing village. There's Harmon Wines, which is just outside of Inverloch,
I
and
love a wine.
I can imagine, even after this silly season.
Oh, I know.
But it's actually just a very chill, laid-back winery, pizza place, picnic tables, so perfect for family. Awesome to visit on the way down to Wilson's Prom, or even just a day trip down there. Very worthwhile.
Well, that's all for our tag list. We have run out of time for the entire show. Again, we've had amazing guest in Mason Cox. You have been absolutely amazing as my co-host too. I've loved having you on. You'll have to come back and join us.
Thank you, Seth.
But for everyone else, make sure you follow us, like us, give us a little listen. Make sure you share as well. And we can't wait to see you back again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Get ready for all things AFLW. Join myself, Sarah Black, Gemma Bastiani and Lucy Watkin on Credit to the Girls as we break down the latest AFLW results. Tune in Mondays and Wednesdays or listen as a podcast anywhere.